Today's case, the bitter local game store versus the self-serving customer. Magic Court is now in session. The Honorable Sullivan T. Monster presiding. All rise!
All right. Order! Could the plaintiff please present themselves?
Rudy here, representing the plaintiff, Your Honor. My client, like me, owns a local game store.
All right, and who's here for the defense?
Hi, Your Honor. Dave from the Wizards legal team here. I'll be representing the defendant, who is a regular customer at the game store in question.
Very well. Let's hear opening arguments.
Your Honor, an employee of my client's recently mismarked a sales item, one magic card, which was purchased at an extremely reduced price by the defendant.
How extreme?
The item was purchased for $185 and should have been priced for $1,700.
Wow, that is a lot.
When the error was noticed, my client contacted the defendant in an attempt to correct the mistake. My client was also willing to offer hundreds of dollars of cards from their personal collection in compensation if the sale was reversed. But the defendant totally ghosted my client.
Objection! Calls for speculation.
Sustained. Now let's hear the defendant's side.
Your Honor, my client has made a perfectly legal purchase. If the item was marked lower than the market price by some amount, that's the fault of the stores. I'd like at this time to cite the cases of finders versus keepers and no takesies backsies. And after this perfectly legal purchase, the owner has threatened to ban my client from their store. This is slander, and it might make it hard for my client to shop at other similar stores in the future. My client is preparing to sue for damages to their reputation.
Noted. Well, so what's the problem? Sounds like an innocent mistake that's the store's fault.
Your Honor, we'd like to present that the defendant knew the actual price of the card and that they were intentionally taking advantage of the store. The fact that this was done with intent makes it malicious.
Interesting. Is the defendant a regular customer?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sure, but they couldn't possibly know all the prices of the cards.
Your Honor, we have character witness statements saying that the defendant, as a regular customer and Magic player, was well aware of the pricing error at the time of the purchase.
Is the defendant claiming that they didn't know the price was drastically low?
No, Your Honor. But my client didn't know it was specifically a mistake. Maybe the plaintiff just really wanted to unload the card. It's not my client's responsibility to understand why items priced the way they are.
And your client has not taken up the plaintiff's offer of different compensation?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Very well. In this case, I find both parties guilty. Seems to me that the defendant knowingly took advantage of the game store's mistake for personal profit. While, this isn't illegal, I find it highly morally reprehensible. Your local game store isn't a super mega corporation that can just shrug off something like this. You're not sticking it to Walmart here. This isn't a Bank of America ATM giving you hundreds instead of tens. $1,500 could be a week's profit for a store like this. Why? We should be helping our game stores, not hurting them. As for the plaintiff, while I appreciate that they attempted to compensate the defendant upon the return of the card, the error is on them. I find the threat of a store ban to be a pretty bad PR move, especially since the defendant will probably never walk into that store again. I rule no action will be taken at this time, although I strongly recommend both parties come to some sort of mutual agreement for both their sakes. Case dismissed.